The next battle lines over cutting government red ink will be drawn tomorrow when President Obama makes a speech in D.C. on fiscal policy.
It's anticipated the president will once again call for increasing taxes on higher income earners, including hiking their taxes on Social Security.
So is this the right way to go?
A fair and balanced debate. Now we have Michael Tanner, a senior fellow at the Cato Institute, who says it's a huge mistake by the president, and Isabel Sawhill from the Brookings Institution, who says he's right to tax the rich, but he can't stop there. Isabel, let's let you explain your position first.
Sure. I mean, we have a big hole in our budget, and so it's going to take spending cuts and revenue increases to fix it. And part of the deal, I think, has to be raising taxes, and the people who can afford those taxes the most are obviously the wealthy. They have done extraordinarily well over the last few decades. They've gotten a disproportionate share of all the economic growth we've had, and I think they can afford to contribute to helping bring down the deficit once we get through this recovery period.
Well, Michael Tanner, I read your book. Yeah, I just got it in the mail today, a policy analysis from you in which you suggest that if you tax every millionaire in this country 100%, it won't be enough to make a dent in the budget. Is that right?
Well, that's right. You can't come close to balancing the budget on the backs of the rich or of taxing everyone enough to balance the budget. But more important than that, to focus solely on how much we need to raise taxes to close the deficit is to mistake the symptom for the disease. The problem isn't the deficit. The problem is the size of government. Even if we could afford to pay for a government that's going to rise by CBO measures to about 42% of GDP, we wouldn't want to. What we really need to do is have a smaller government that we can pay for, not simply raise taxes to pay for a bigger government.
Michael, no one would argue with that. However, we have to pay for this great nation. And do you want to do it on the backs of the middle class or the poorer, or do you do it on people who have benefited greatly and have come to be very successful? Obviously, the upper tier, that's the argument.
Why don't we cut spending? Most government programs are counterproductive and do more harm than good. We've increased education spending by 119% since George Bush was the president. We've had very little improvement in education scores for all that money. We've poured money into infrastructure, but we haven't created new jobs. We've been wasting money. Why don't we cut that first?
Isabel, what about something, the plan that we saw in December, the Simpson-Bowles plan? It was a bipartisan plan. The president commissioned that it be done. The basic bottom line on the tax policy there was we lower overall rates to a top rate of 28% and get rid of deductions. Are you in favor of that idea?
I'm very much in favor of that idea. I think it's a terrific idea. I think most people don't realize how much revenue is lost because we spend so much money through the tax system. We economists call these tax expenditures because all these deductions and special preferences in the tax system are just another way of funding a lot of benefits that people get, the value of a house and everything else. So I think that we could save around $1 trillion a year if we eliminated all those deductions. Even if you eliminated half of them, it would be $500 billion or $5 trillion over a decade, and that together with some spending cuts and maybe slightly higher rates for some people would basically fix the problem.
Michael, are you a believer in the so-called the trickle-down economics theory where the more the wealthy get to keep their money, the more they'll magnanimously pass it down to their workers and to their companies, and then, of course, that helps the economy?
Well, you can't create jobs if you destroy job creators. Now, I'm in favor of closing most of these loopholes, most of these so-called tax expenditures. That's because they're terribly distorting in terms of the economy. But we should use the revenue from that not to give government more money to spend on more programs, but rather to bring down rates so that we can have more entrepreneurship, more investment, more job creation.
But, Michael, it does sound, and Isabel, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you two are agreeing with each other that if we get rid of these thousands and thousands of pages of the tax code that deal with deductions, lower the tax rates, which would give you the supply side incentive, Michael, that you support, and get rid of a lot of deductions, you would both be happy.
Yeah.
You know, what Bowles-Simpson does is it does some of both. It lowers the rates, but it also devotes some of the revenue that you would pick up from getting rid of those loopholes to deficit reduction. So we could debate about how much of the revenues that we could generate from getting rid of the this very inefficient tax system should be used for deficit reduction and how much for lowering the rates. I think the corporate rate is too high in the U.S., for example.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there's plenty of money there to be used for deficit reduction.
Michael Tanner, Isabel Sawhill, a fair and balanced, good discussion. Thank you both for coming on. We appreciate
Thank you.
it. You're welcome. And you can see
Thank you.
the president's fiscal policy speech tomorrow. Decide for yourself, 1:35 p.m. Eastern Time, right here, live on Fox Business.
I like that they finally agreed on that one point.
Yeah.
Looks like we might get somewhere. Commercial planes are getting larger and larger, but when is big too big?
Well, the Joes know big, and they are here to tell us why size does matter in the sky. That is next. And oops at the airport. You saw this, didn't you? The wing of an Airbus A380 with a span of more than 260 feet. Here it comes.
Click.
Boom, clicking it right there.
Whoa,
Smack.
brother.
That was a Comair
Man.
commuter plane at JFK in New York last
Wow.
night. Sent the smaller aircraft spinning like a toy.
Imagine if you were in that small aircraft. You're probably in the big one. You didn't even feel it. The A380 is the world's biggest passenger jet, holding about 500 passengers. But do they make sense? Will regular flyers want to get on board one of these monsters?
We've got our regular Joes on the case. Money management guru Joe Bessaker and the Average Joe radio host and Teamster and former airport employee Joe Ligotti. All right, Joe, you win the first draw here because, of course, you worked at the airport. Tell me what you think about this. Are we making too much of this? Rarely do these kinds of things happen, but that A380 looks huge compared to the little guy.
Well, so don't I, Liz, but that's all right. Big things are great. I actually still work at the airport. When I leave the studio, I could be on the airfield at Logan tonight. I still work there. Yeah, we're making a huge thing about this. Think about it. At Logan, where I work, about 1,100 to 1,200 operations, landing and taking off, happen every day. And how many times do you actually, you know, see this? This is like a Hummer and a Prius. I mean, when you think about it, colliding, it could have been pilot error. That's why we have the NTSB. Let them handle it. Thank God nobody got hurt. But absolutely, I like the A380. I think it's a safe aircraft. Airbuses are used all over the world. Absolutely.
Well, Joe Bessaker, I guess I'd rather be in the Hummer. I mean, if you have to choose, that's frankly why a lot of people choose the big cars rather than these little cars aren't selling. The Volt is not selling. The Leaf is not selling. Their sales are pathetic. People feel safer in bigger vehicles, whether they're cars or planes.
Safer and more comfortable. I don't. Can you imagine Joe and I in a Volt together or
No.
little Prius?
No.
But no. But you know, the thing is that size you would think I would think size matters, but really it's operators. I think we have two main issues here. Number one, you know, when the government's involved, you have the FAA involved, you have the government involved. Air traffic controllers are still an issue. They've been in the news here a little bit over the last couple of weeks, and I think there's still some issues there. And then I think, primarily for me, I think the airports, which were supposed to, a long plan was to get these airports better up to size. They are crowded in my home airport of Philadelphia. They've expanded that a little bit recently, but you know, I think that's something that's a shovel-ready plan for jobs. If we go back, it's all about infrastructure in this country right now. Our infrastructure is kind of bursting at the seams, whether it be bridges or airports or roads, and I think that's something that we really should address.
Joe, can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I say something, Joe? Wouldn't it make more sense, though, if the airports are crowded? I mean, this plane originally was supposedly to fly from New York to Hong Kong in one shot. move 500 people at a time in one big plane instead of 2 or 3 other flights. We'll use less energy and less gas and fuel, might be even cheaper.
And Joe Bessaker, before you comment on that, you as a stock picker, do you like any airlines or any big industrials that relate to this? Are there any picks here?
Well, actually, no, Liz. I made the comment before that to me, investing in the airlines is kind of like rooting for the New York Mets. It's a lost cause. I'm not really a big believer in investing in the airlines. I think that they're a proxy for oil, and nobody's really made a ton of money in the oil stocks. I do like some of the airplane makers and some of the components that go in to some of these companies, but as far as the airlines themselves, it's not what I think is a growth business. And there's so many great opportunities in this marketplace overall across the board that it's just not an area that's going to take my money as a growth investment.
All right, well, let's talk about the folks who make the airplanes. You get the Airbus. That was the big one that bumped the small one, which I believe was an Embraer. That's a Brazilian company. Frankly, I'm putting my money on the big one. What about you, Ligotti?
Oh, absolutely. That was 1 to 5 chalk on the big plane. There's no question about that. Listen, you got to remember, this plane is 2,000 square feet larger inside, like a house inside, of bigger than a 747, which is what Air Force One is, which I've kind of seen and got to work with at the airport. So I seriously think you're going to find this was a blind spot in the plane. Maybe the other pilot didn't pull onto the taxiway the way he was supposed to. I mean, there's a lot of different things. There's 1,000 different things that could have gone wrong. It's the safest way to travel. Buy a ticket, take your family on vacation, come on down to Logan.
You know what, Joe? We just showed a picture of you with Air Force One. I don't know if we can put it back up, but you're wearing a green shirt. Is there a volume button on that shirt? Is that what that? Man, that is loud. They're not going to miss you.
Especially in 5XL, that's a very loud shirt, yes.
5XL.
Hey, Joes, we love you. Thank you so much.
That was actually the last pilot to fly the Air Force One on 9/11.
Oh, wow.
Boy.
Wow. All right. Emerald Asset Management, Joe Bessaker, and radio host Joe Ligotti. Great to see you both. Thanks, guys. By the way, tonight on Scoreboard, 9 p.m., talking about big guys, we got one of the biggest, former Minnesota Governor Jesse the Body Ventura. He's going to be talking about stupid laws. He says we got too many of them in the country. You're not going to stop people from doing something stupid just by creating another law. And this guy is anything but stupid. He just keeps on going. Stan Lee's first comic book was in 1941, 70 years ago. And he is still going strong. He'll be on Scoreboard tonight at 9 p.m. We love Stan Lee.
Love Stan Lee.
He's the best.
Mortgage rates may be heading higher for new home buyers.
And those not paying their mortgages right now may be to blame. We explain coming next.